The crew of the Leopoldville were Belgians. Most of them did not speak English. The fate of the ship was not clear to the men that had boarded the Leopoldville. It was very clear to the crew. They knew the ship was sinking. Hello, I'm Dr. George Cressman, and I'm the staff historian here at the Camp Landing Museum. I'm standing in one of the displays in our museum, and I want to tell you the story about the 66th Infantry Division and a tragic Christmas Eve. The 66th Division had gone to England relatively late, and in December of 1944, they were still located in England. They had orders to move to France, to the continent, in January of 1945. But in mid-December, what we call the Battle of the Bulge, the German offensive in the Ardennes, kicked off. And because casualties were so high, the 66 got hurry-up orders to report to the continent. So on Christmas Eve, 1944, the 66 moved to the port of Southampton, and the men boarded two ships. One of the ships was the SS Leopoldville, a Belgian ship that had been converted to troop transport. As the ships left the harbor, mid-evening on the 24th of December, 1944, as they pulled out of Southampton on their way to Cherbourg, they crossed the channel, and just outside of Cherbourg, the SS Leopoldville was 12 miles out of the port of Cherbourg. A German U-boat torpedoed the SS Leopoldville. The crew of the Leopoldville were Belgians. Most of them did not speak English. The fate of the ship was not clear to the men that had boarded the Leopoldville. It was very clear to the crew. They knew the ship was sinking. There were inadequate lifeboats. There were inadequate life preservers. The channel was very cold. The water temperature was in the low 50s. As the ship began to sink, the Belgian crew launched lifeboats and left the vessel. It's not clear whether an abandoned ship order had been given. Even if it had been, it was issued in a language that most of the men on the ship could not understand. A British destroyer pulled alongside the Leopoldville. It was much lower in the water than the Leopoldville, so men trying to get to that destroyer had to jump. Some of them made it. Some of them fell between the ships and were crushed to death by the grinding of the hulls. Eventually the ship, the Leopoldville, was so low in the water the men knew they had to get off. They thought that rescue was coming from the port of Cherbourg, but that rescue did not come until much later because it was Christmas Eve and the men in the port were at parties. So many men then wound up in the water. Some of them quickly died from cold temperatures. That night, 763 men lost their lives. Perhaps the most tragic Christmas Eve that these men have ever experienced. The 66th then went on to combat duty. We'll describe that duty in a separate video. But I'd like you to remember this terrible tragedy and know that every Christmas we hold a ceremony here at Camp Landing to commemorate the men who lost their lives that night, and we invite you to join us for that ceremony. Thanks for watching this video. Come out and visit us at the museum. We're open every day from noon to 4. For our museum staff and volunteers, I'm Dr. George Cressman, signing off.